Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, it's an exciting day today, wouldn't you say?
It's the day you wait all year for. You get to go outside. It's the spring. It's nice weather. You get to think about football for a change. It's one of the best days on the Ohio State football calendar.
It is, and we are here today to preview today's spring game, which you are all well aware of the rosters by now. Tom and I drafted those earlier in the week. Tom, I can't tell you how many comments and calls and direct messages and even letters people have written to me detailing their awe of my roster. And it's like, it's been overwhelming. I would say, I can't say it's been overwhelming because I expected it, but I have appreciated it because it's always good to be told how good you know you are. And because it gets tiring patting my own back, it's nice to have other people pat my back, just regaling me with their awe and really just appreciation of the roster that I put together. Has anybody said anything to you even remotely close to that?
Well, there was a coach who has won a national championship in football at Ohio State within the last year who weighed in on his take on the matter, and he picked me to win by 21 points. So I took that as a reasonably good sign. And I'm sure you saw that because I believe you responded to it. So
yeah, so it was just one person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just one person who has won a national championship as an Ohio State coach within the last calendar year. Yeah, in football. Yeah, I'm sure there were others, but I just kind of stopped looking then. In this particular area, I didn't want to run up the score on you. We'll run up the score later today, but before the game, I didn't want to run up the score on you.
Well, and as Tom is alluding to, he has Justin Fields, and he thinks, oh, everything is going to be great because I have Justin Fields. But, Tom, if you play Justin Fields too much and he gets hurt, your season is lost. And also, my guys are going out there trying to hurt Justin Fields because, for one, he is the enemy, and two, he's too cocky. He's arrogant, and his Twitter game is too good. And so what I've told these people, what I've told my defensive ends and even my defensive tackles, I said, hey, if you want to win this game and if you want to just stick it to somebody who is good at Twitter, sweep the leg.
I mean, the Cobra Kai game plan has never failed outside of the Tri-Valley Karate Tournament. So I think you're probably, I can respect it. I can respect the hustle.
I also have a group of walk-ons who are planning to possibly kidnap some members of his family in order to force Fields to tank the game. Possibly.
Point shaving seems like a good strategy for you. That seems like among the possible strategies that could lead to a victory for you. That's right up there.
Are you at all concerned? Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, what is your favorite part of a spring game like this? When it's a spring game and you're out at the stadium, what is your favorite part of the day?
The fourth quarter. No, I would say I like to watch the young receivers go against the young corners and also the young quarterbacks go against everybody. And we've got that in this one. And so, yeah, I'm just looking forward. I guess the passing games against the secondaries and the defense. What about you?
Yeah, I'm always interested to see which of the freshmen looks not quite completely totally lost. That's really all you're looking for out of the early enrolling freshmen. Because everyone else, you kind of have a sense. Like, you've at least seen the guys, even the redshirt freshmen, we've seen them in practice a little bit the previous year. We have some sense for where they are. And, you don't generally see guys make just complete night and day leaps. from January to April. But the early enrollee freshmen, those are always the guys I want to see. And it almost doesn't matter, whether it's an offensive lineman or a wide receiver or running back or a linebacker. Like, I just want to sort of establish a baseline for where these guys are, because I feel like that informs you almost as much as anything else we see all spring. Like, how when it's a game and the lights are on and the stands are full, like, how do these guys respond? Is even a spring game too big a moment for them already, or are they ready to be an impact player? Because, I mean, like a year ago, we saw Garrett Wilson in the spring game, and I don't think he had a ton of catches, but he had a touchdown catch, I think, in the second half of the game. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, okay, you can see what the hype is all about. You can see that this is already headed somewhere, and it didn't take long in the fall for that to pay off.
Well, I think back to the 2017 spring game when Jeff Okudah and Sean Wade were both early enrollees, and they both made plays in the fourth quarter. Now, earlier in the game, I think they had both been beaten for long plays and possibly touchdowns, but Kerry Combs, who was still the coach back then, was very happy with how they bounced back as true freshmen. And we could very well see the same thing in this one with, I've got Ryan Watts, you've got Legend Cavazos. Maybe they don't have the best first halves, but whoever steps up among those two, maybe that's where the win comes from. But yeah, just seeing the young guys perform, even some of the redshirt freshmen that we haven't seen, like Tommy Eichenberg, but going back to the true freshmen, like, remember Nick Connor, middle linebacker from the 2015 class. I believe he enrolled early, had an interception in the spring game, and it was all over the place. And then, of course, was injured throughout his career and had to give up the sport. But yeah, it's always fun to watch just the new guys blow up and start to get that hype. And as I was saying about Tommy Eichenberg, that can happen with the redshirt freshman as well, who didn't experience spring football the year before. And now this is their chance to shine. So yeah, a lot of stuff to watch, usually through like the first three quarters. But I'll be paying attention, Tom, this time for all four quarters because, his bragging rights on the line.
Yeah, I mean, what is more precious than bragging rights? I'm just looking at the stats from last year. I had forgotten. You kind of have this memory of Justin Fields throwing a 99-yard touchdown to
he was bad.
Ben Victor. That was kind of the standout play last year. But Justin Fields finished 4 for 13 for 131 yards and a touchdown. He had that 98-yard touchdown. Other than that, 3 for 12 for 33 yards and was sacked 4 times. Matthew Baldwin had way better stats than Justin Fields last year in the spring game, which is crazy because then immediately Matthew Baldwin transfers to TCU. It's so interesting to me because you go through the spring games and you have like certain, like one guy who sticks in your head, a player or a play, and that's what you remember. Like my takeaway last year was that long touchdown from Justin Fields and the touchdown catch for Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson finished 4 catches for 44 yards in the touchdown. Fields 4 for 13. And it's interesting. And then the leading receiver in the game, leading total yardage, I think, gainer in the entire game. No, Ben Victor was the total right. Yardage gainer, but he had that 98 yarder. Other than that, Jalen Gill, 7 catches, 95 yards. And I don't know that Jalen Gill had 7 catches for 95 yards all season last year during the full season.
No, and that was another. We were fooled by that one because that was what we saw from Jalen Gill all spring long. So that was not a surprise that he had that spring game. But I'll go back to Fields being 4 of 13. I remember writing and telling people, like, I think all but like 1 or 2 of his passes were off the hands of his receivers. And there were a couple where he had to throw it away. He was sacked 4 times. So it's not like he had the best protection. And I still think, Tom, don't judge what he'll do in 2019 based off of that spring game. All right. You got to let him shed that black jersey and just be a quarterback. And I bet you'll see a very, very good quarterback in 2019. If I'm wrong, Tom, hold me to it, because I'm not often wrong. So I still like to know sometimes that I can be wrong and that I am human. Okay. So I don't mind being told I'm wrong if it's coming from a good place. Not where you, Tom, not where you come from when you tell me I'm wrong, because those are mean places and it's not a good, healthy thing. It's just mainly you trying to belittle people, because I'm not going to say you're a bully, but you have bully tendencies. No offense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, none taken at all. You kind of touched on this, but one of the things that makes the spring game such a crapshoot in terms of evaluation is the offensive lines. And there are barely enough guys who are really ready to play to form two even remotely competent offensive lines. And so that can really make life difficult for the offenses if you've got guys who haven't worked together a lot. I mean, how often have we talked about the importance of the offensive line gelling as a unit and working together as a unit? And this is almost virtually never do they just go first team versus second team. So you're going to have a left tackle who's not used to working next to the left guard, who's not used to working to the center, who's not used to working next to the right guard. And so it turns into a little bit of a crapshoot, and it gets real sloppy and real raggedy, and that can make it a little harder to evaluate quarterbacks, evaluate running backs. If they can't pass pro, then it makes it hard to evaluate the wide receivers because the wide receivers don't have time to get open. So, we have not had a real classic Jim Tressel spring game in a while where it's just like 6-3 and everyone is just screaming in the stands by about the middle of the third quarter. But it's not the good, crisp football you're used to seeing in the fall for sure. But, at this time of year, any football is good football.
Yeah, especially right now. I'm looking at these offensive lines. And again, I am the Scarlet team. Tom is the gray team. If you look at our top 5 guys for each of us, I think you have the makings of one of the Big Ten's best offensive lines, mm-hmm. which is a pretty good sign. Like for me, my tackles are Nick Petit-Frere and Paris Johnson. My guards are Gavin Cupp and Matthew Jones, and my center is Josh Myers. I think all of those guys could do fine as starters for the Buckeyes. Some of them we know they have been. And now you've got Harry Miller at center. You've got Wyatt Davis and Enoch Vamahi at guards. One of them is an All-American. And then you've got Thayer Munford and DeJuan Jones. And that offensive line I think would be fine as well. Now, DeJuan Jones is going to have some issues, just like, I've got guys who are going to have some issues. But each of those I think would be one of the best offensive lines in the Big Ten, probably top 5 for sure. Wouldn't you say? Not that we know all of the offensive lines or, who's going to be where in the Big Ten. But you look at that and you're thinking, well, I've seen worse offensive lines at Ohio State. And I think we both have a combination that could actually be rolled out there if need be.
Oh, yeah. I think if you took either of these offensive lines and gave them a fall camp to work together, they could be a representative Big Ten line. Like you would not have the Ohio State 2019 offensive line experience where it's 5 guys across the deck and they can run the ball and they can pass protect pretty well and everything looks good and they're dominating teams up front. But either one of these, you could put together an okay line. Like you could even tell me that either one of these would be at least within range of what they got out of the 2018 offensive line at times.
Mm-hmm. I
mean, the center of that 2018 offensive line was like, it was fine. But that was an area that coming into last year, I think we both talked pretty openly about the fact that, the 2019 offensive line is going to be better than the 18 one. And I think that either one of these, if you put them through, gave them time to gel and time to, full camp to work together, I think you would be probably close to the 2018 Ohio State offensive line, which is, they weren't running the ball great that year. The pass pro was usually pretty good, but it was fine. And to have two different offensive lines you could run out there that are at that level is a pretty good testament to Stud's ability to develop guys and their ability to bring guys in. Because, a year ago, we were looking at the offensive line as a potential disaster, like they were an injury or two away from like a real problem. And now right now, I think they could have a couple injuries and still run out a pretty darn good offensive line.
Well, and you mentioned Jim Tressel. They could do what he did, and which is run out the second team offensive line for a series here and there in the second quarter. And not even knowing who that second team offensive line is, but they've got enough guys where, because you look at the guards that we're talking about, and it's Gavin Cupp and Matthew Jones and Enoch Vamahi, who are going to be in that range of the backups. Those are three decent guys. And the tackles we've talked about with DeJuan Jones and Paris Johnson. The center, does Harry Miller slide over? Probably. But there's, Gavin Cupp has snapped and Matthew Jones has snapped. And obviously Luke Whippler is one of the top center recruits, center signees in the country. So I don't know that they will because they haven't done it before. But there are enough guys, if they wanted to, they could trot out the second team offensive line just for grins and giggles and for, I guess, experience as well.
Yeah, and that was something that seemed like it paid off pretty well during the Tressel years. Because, didn't they have the second team offensive line when they went right down the field and scored a touchdown against Texas in that 1-2 game in 2006? Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's huge in terms of development. Because those are guys who, they have gone through the 6 wide receiver rotation and the 3 cornerback rotation, so that then, if you have an injury, you've got guys who have played a whole bunch and can just step right in and it's not a big deal. And the next year you have a bunch of guys who are functionally returning starters. If you can do that at every position or at a lot of different positions, that's huge. That, if you can have 5 backup offensive linemen who have all played meaningful minutes, like not just garbage time minutes, but like meaningful minutes in the first halves of meaningful games. And, you've got 3 wide receivers who are out there at a time who've done that. And you're rotating your tight ends and you're probably rotating your running backs to some degree. Like all of a sudden the next year, it's like, well, how many returning starters do you have? Like, well, kind of everyone's a little bit of a returning starter to some degree or another. Like that's pretty... you're probably not going to do that at quarterback, but if you can do that at most other positions, they could do that at linebacker too this year. And we know Larry Johnson does that to some degree at the on the defensive line. That's a luxury. First of all, that's a luxury in terms of keeping guys fresh, keeping guys, a little bit more well rested, that you don't have guys who are just gassed in the fourth quarter. Also in terms of keeping guys healthy throughout the course of the year. But then it's even big for the development for the next year as you have kind of a lot more returning starters, even if they're kind of like quote unquote starters.
In today's game, however, you mentioned Larry Johnson, and I like my Scarlet pass rushing against your offensive tackles. Now, granted, you have Thayer Munford at left tackle. You're probably not going to play him beyond the first quarter. And probably then at that point, you've got DeJuan Jones and Max Ray and Trey LaRue to be your tackles. And I'll have Zach Harrison and Tyreek Smith and Noah Potter and Jacoby Cowan and Darian Henry Young out there rushing the passer. And I've told Zach Harrison, I need you to play all 60 minutes. I need you out there for all 4 quarters because we have to win this. We have to set the tone. I want, when you see Justin Fields or your other quarterback, CJ Stroud, whoever that is, when you see those guys out there, I want you to see Trevor Lawrence. And I want you to picture Justin Fields with long blonde hair. And I want you to picture this CJ Stroud with long blonde hair. And I want you to go out there, and I shouldn't say I want you to kill them. I don't want them dead. I want them to wish they were dead. And that's all I'm asking. And Zach Harrison, we know he is the next in line. And so I feel pretty good about asking him to do what he was born to do. Tom, are you concerned with your tackles throughout the second and third and fourth quarter, and possibly even the first quarter?
Not the first quarter. The first quarter I'm feeling okay about. I think my game plan has to be get out to about a 21-point lead before I pull Thayer Munford off the field, and then just kind of try and ride it out from there. That has to be my biggest concern. You've got some very, very good pass rushers, and I don't think this is a huge surprise. Ohio State has more depth at defensive end than they do at offensive tackle. Like, the offensive tackle depth is fine. The defensive end depth is, like, I've got Tyler Friday and Javonte Jean-Baptiste and Jonathan Cooper, and yet somehow you also have two guys who could be potentially all Big Ten guys this year in Zach Harrison and Tyreek Smith, plus Noah Potter, who seems like he could be a year or two away from being something pretty significant. And then you got a couple young guys in Jacoby Cowan and Darian Henry-Young. Like, I'm not. If there is an area that I'm concerned, I feel like I have an advantage in an awful lot of positions on the field, but that's the one that's a little bit of a problem. And if you've seen a team with offensive line problems going against a defensive line that can really push them around, that can be enough to slow down an advantage just about everywhere else.
I am interested to see how Paris Johnson holds up against Tyler Friday and Javonte Jean-Baptiste, and maybe Jonathan Cooper, depending on how much he plays. And Cooper was the sixth pick, or fifth or sixth pick among the defensive ends, but that was because we don't expect him to. Why would you play him? And so you'll have some of the third year guys getting after my quarterbacks, Gunnar Hoke and Jack Miller. Arguably the two most elusive quarterbacks on the roster. So I think they'll need to be elusive simply because sometimes, things break down. I would expect them to be able to get rid of the ball quickly because of my superior receivers compared to your secondary. Now, Tom, to let people know, your secondary, your corners, you went with Shaun Wade first, which is fine. I probably would have gone with somebody else. But probably not. So you went with Shaun Wade.
Yeah.
The best cornerback, arguably, in the nation. Big whoop. All right.
Yeah, he's going to be probably, he's probably not going to play 3 quarters or anything like that. You might get a half out of him, maybe, even if you just get a quarter. I felt like there were 3 corners that are kind of ahead of everyone else. Shaun Wade, Sevyn Banks, and Cameron Brown. By picking first, I was going to get 2 of those 3 guys. And by picking Shaun Wade first, I have Shaun Wade and another of those 2 guys, which seems pretty good. So, yeah, that was my strategy there. Have more guys who are kind of head and shoulders above everyone else right now, and also have the best player. And I think it worked out okay.
I think it did. I'll give you that. I do expect a fine performance from Ryan Watts, who ended up being my second corner. The receiver situation is kind of I pulled a homer on that one, although I don't even know that I could consider it a homer since we don't know that it's going to end up okay. But I opened the receivers, and what I should have done is selected Garrett Wilson, because then I would have been able to get Jameson Williams, and he would have been my Z. Mm-hmm. Instead, I went with Chris Olave, and before I even got the Ave out, you were like, Garrett Wilson.
Yep.
And so you didn't even give me a chance to question myself, which is pretty rude. Mm-hmm. So then like the Garrett Wilson, because Jameson Williams, for me, I think is probably tailor-made for the spring game. Because why not just jack it up and let him go run and get it, or some of these short routes and let him see what he can do after the catch. So I will give you some credit there. But me ending up with Chris Olave, Julian Fleming, and Jalen Gill as my top 3, let's not forget what Jalen Gill, he is Mr. Spring. People can talk about Brandon Childress, Bam Childress all they want. Mike Thomas used to have some pretty good springs as well. I would put Jalen Gill more on that Mike Thomas route, even though Gill plays more of the same position as Bam Childress, but that's not a good comparison. We're talking about spring here, and Jalen Gill is Mr. Spring.
Yeah, Bam Childress and Spring, it's like, it's a compliment, but also it's not a compliment. It's one of those, like, compliment with a little bit of you've got your eyebrow cocked a little bit. Yeah. I think Jalen Gill is definitely not in the Bam Childress compliment with an asterisk camp just yet. He has the opportunity to be in the Michael Thomas camp, where it's like he was good in the spring, and sometimes it took him a little while to get going. But once he got going, in his career, like, yep, it worked out just fine. So, I mean, I don't know. Jalen Gill had, I think, 5 catches last year, so he actually may have more catches through 2 seasons than Michael Thomas did. So, if you're in the mood to, he had 6 catches, 51 yards last year, and a touchdown. So don't write Jalen Gill off just yet, because the Michael Thomas thing worked out okay, in my opinion.
Yeah, because remember, Thomas, I believe he was 3 for 21 as a true freshman and then redshirted as a sophomore. And that also does not include the 1 year of prep school after his senior year in high school. So different guys develop differently. And we can point at Paris Campbell and Terry McLaurin, who at this point in their career going into year 3, neither of them had a catch. So Jalen Gill is well ahead of them as well.
Yeah, and there's a very clear path to the field there, I think, for him. I mean, depending on where Garrett Wilson ends up. If Garrett Wilson is at H, obviously that is going to complicate Gill's route to being a starter. But if, with Paris Campbell gone from 2 years ago and KJ Hill gone from last year, those are 2 guys who had a whole lot of catches in the H. So someone's going to have to get those catches at the H spot. And, maybe it's Garrett Wilson, but it could be Garrett Wilson and Jalen Gill together. CJ Saunders is in there as well, and you've got a whole bunch of freshmen who are potentially there as well. And hey, isn't that a smooth transition to, hey, Jackson Smith and Jigba's on my team? Does that make you sad that Jackson Smith and Jigba's on my team and not yours?
Well, yeah, and and I could have selected him, but I went Gill because he's the more proven spring player. Even though I believe Jackson Smith and Jigba will probably leave Ohio State with the most catches in his first 3 years of anybody in school history. And I would say most catches of all time, but I don't expect him to be here for 4 years. Because in the little bit that we got to see, he was every bit as good as Garrett Wilson was last year. And I don't want to say if not even better, but he did everything perfectly. And the only pass he didn't catch was one that nobody was going to catch, and it was one where he's falling out of bounds on I think a corner route with a cornerback ripping his hands in there, and he was already out of bounds, and yet he still almost came down with this thing, and yeah, he's gonna be really good, but the H situation is crowded because it sure sounds like Garrett Wilson is going to stay there. And I'll probably ask you once a month, and I'm sure I already have. I'll set an over-under on Garrett Wilson, and every time I do, you'll probably take the over. But if I go 75 catches right now, assuming a regular season, is that enough to get you to go with the under on Garrett Wilson?
75 catches, and we're assuming it's a 14 or 15 game season?
Correct.
5 catches a game for 15 games. Oof, that's a lot. That's a lot of catches. I probably have to go under 75 just on the balance of probability. Because if they only play 14 games, then it's more than 5 catches every single game. And they're probably going to rotate, so you're going to have a second H in there. I think I would probably go under, because I know Paris Campbell beat that number comfortably 2 years ago, but that was a lot of those little pop passes. Mm-hmm. So, and that's not really what their game is with Garrett Wilson necessarily. So I would probably take the under, but I can tell you, just when you started saying Garrett Wilson over under, I was all ready to say over. 'Cause I'm going to take the over on just about everything. 75 is pretty aggressive.
Well, KJ Hill had 70 that year as well, but they also couldn't run the ball very well, and they will be able to run the ball this year, which will take the numbers down for everybody.
KJ Hill last year had 57 catches, and he was the leading receiver.
Yeah.
So that's, 57 for KJ Hill, 49 for Chris Olave, and then Ben Victor and Garrett Wilson had 35 and 30, and no one else had more than 30. So, yeah, 75 would be pretty abnormal. I think there's so much receiving talent on this team that I don't think you're going to get him that many.
But it's also a young group of receivers overall, and if they've got a guy that they can rely on, we know they will go after him and just continue to feed him the ball. I don't think 75 is outrageous if there is a 14 or 15 game schedule. But I don't think there'll be that need like there was in 2018 to just continue getting the ball to Campbell and KJ Hill, who combined for 160 catches between the two of them. I don't think you'll see that. There won't be the need because of the running game, even if there is no true number one running back, which is a discussion we can have at a later date because there's really no need to talk about the running backs for a spring game preview.
Yeah, the running game during the spring game is pretty much a non-factor is probably a safe way to put it. Last year, Marcus Crowley had 10 rushes for 50 yards. Master Teague had 7 for 75. But that was it. J.K. Dobbins had 3 carries for 11 yards, and that was it. They just are not gonna. They're not gonna run the ball just with those patchwork offensive lines, and they don't want guys getting drilled a lot. Like they're gonna throw it a lot more than they're gonna run it. It was the run to pass ratio last year was 36-25 for the Scarlet team and 28-22 for the Gray team, and that includes sacks as well. So on the rushes, so really it's not even that much. So yeah, it's running backs in the spring game are, you can kind of look at them, but you generally, I never feel like you get a ton out of watching the running backs in the spring game just because you don't have a clue what the offensive line is going to look like in the fall. And, it's like having a running quarterback too. Like Tate Martell in the spring game, it was like, I can't wait to see Tate Martell. And then it was like, oh, well, anytime anyone gets within 3 yards of him, they're going to blow it dead. So we don't actually learn anything.
I think it was the 2002 spring game. I was looking forward to seeing Maurice Claret, and there's nothing to watch. He may, if he played, he may have been like 6 for 12. And you're like, this guy's
a bust.
This is the savior. We're screwed. But he turned out to be decent. Tom, you mentioned the whole cornerbacks thing where you're like, well, there's an odd number. I'm going to go win this one by opening up that group. You did the same thing at safety, which was annoying. You went with Josh Proctor, who was clearly the guy. And then that also allowed you, because there's an odd number of scholarship safeties. So by being first, then you get to have more scholarship safeties. And I'm not stuck. I'm perfectly happy with Marcus Hooker and Court Williams as my safeties. They're physical. They make plays. Meanwhile, Josh Proctor, Ronnie Hickman, we've never seen him. Sure. His nickname is the Rocket. And Bryson Shaw, who we saw this spring in the slot some and doing some things. So, yeah, that's fine. I just wonder, I think Josh Proctor might end up biting on some of the play actions because my guys are magicians. Can he be that deep help that Chris Olave needs? Because we know your corners aren't going to be able to stay with him.
Yeah, Sean Wade, that guy, what has that guy ever done? Nothing. But he was barely a first round pick this year if he had come out. Mm-hmm. Come on.
Yep.
And I'm not sure how much of a threat the play action is since we literally just got done having a conversation about how the running game isn't a big part of the spring game.
I don't remember that.
Maybe. I don't want to say you're definitely wrong, but you're probably wrong. Josh Proctor is one of those guys who I am among the most interested in seeing heading into the year where he is, because you need someone to replace Jordan Fuller back there, to be the deep safety, to be the guy who keeps the 20-yard play from turning into an 80-yard play. Because 2 years ago, you saw when they didn't have, when you had safety play that was not excellent, how bad that can look. And then last year, when you had just consistent excellence back there, it was just like, oh, now they don't give up big plays anymore, and now they're just dominating on defense because you can't move the ball consistently on them. So yeah, that for sure. Josh Proctor is, he's one of those guys where if you told me Josh Proctor is a first-team All-Big Ten player this year, that tells me Ohio State probably has an extremely good year. Mm-hmm. Just that one piece of information alone. Because there's an awful lot of other spots where it's like, yeah, they'll figure it out. Safety's a spot where they have to find someone to replace Jordan Fuller. If you tell me Josh Proctor's a first-team All-Big Ten, if you tell me that Seven Banks or Cameron Brown is first-team All-Big Ten, like that tells me an awful lot about how this fall is going to go. Just to quickly derail us, I looked up the 2002 Ohio State spring game box score, just since you mentioned Maurice Clarett. This may have literally been the game I was thinking of earlier when I talked about how disgusting Jim Tressel's spring games were. Would you like to guess what the final score was? I'm gonna give you a hint. It wasn't a shootout.
9-3.
No, sorry, lower.
7-3.
Great, get lower. Gray 6, Scarlet 3.
Yeah.
This is the game. I remember being so excited for this game. Like, oh, this is gonna be so fun. I love going to see the team in the spring, and it's a nice sunny day, and then it just goes, oh no, this is terrible. Yes, Maurice Clarett finished 5 carries for 17 yards.
Yeah.
Not great. Lydell Ross 5 carries, -6 yards.
All right.
Maurice Hall, the leading rusher for the Scarlet team, 6 carries, 12 yards. Scott McMullen, Granville, Ohio's own Scott McMullen, 10 for 23, 113 yards. Craig Krenzel, 14 for 26, 155 yards. Not great. Not great.
Bam Childress, 1 catch, 8 yards.
I'm looking right now. Yes, okay, you've pulled it up too.
Oh,
yes,
no,
one catch,
of course not.
Yeah. Yes, 1 catch, 8 yards. And, the leading receiver for the Scarlet team, Jaja Riley, 6 catches for 50 yards. That is a name I have not thought about in quite a while. Jaja Riley.
Yeah, good times.
What was it? Thinking back, I do remember this game, and I do not remember thinking that it was good times.
No, it was because I was actually, I think at that point I was dating my wife, and I wanted to watch this, and so like I put my foot down, like, no, I'm watching the spring game, and so I'm watching it thinking, this is terrible. I'm in trouble for this? Really?
There's a valuable lesson in when to cash your chips in. That's good to learn that lesson before you get married. That's good. See, I was smart. I had a job working in sports. I was writing for the Ozone for this game, and also working as a sports producer at NBC4. So I was getting paid to be there for this game. So that's a little pro tip for all you guys out there. If you want to have your wife and or girlfriend and or whoever be okay with you going to these types of things and paying a lot of attention, I recommend you get paid to do so, because that makes it. I'm sorry, it's for work. Sorry, I can't help you. Sorry.
Yeah, but you're talking about Josh Proctor, and until I'm proven, well, earlier before you sidetracked us, until I see differently, I kind of view him as a baseball player who will hit home runs but also strike out, maybe have about a 260 average. Is it crazy to think that maybe like Marcus Hooker is, like a light hitting shortstop, but he'll bat 290, where there aren't necessarily the strikeouts, but maybe not the range in terms of the home run numbers that Josh Proctor would put up. Because I mean, remember last year he had an interception like right away, and we're thinking, oh, he's gonna. And then he had one where he dropped, and basically it looked like he was going to average like an interception a game for the first bit of the season, or was in position to do that, and then kind of just dropped off. But there's not really. Even though the guys played a lot of snaps behind the starters, you're not going to take Jordan Fuller off the field in a meaningful moment unless he gets suspended or whatever for targeting. So I wonder, did Josh Proctor really get the best opportunity to prove that he can do what Jordan Fuller does? And even though he may be able to do more in the passing game, you still have to do as much as Jordan Fuller did in the running game if that defense is going to work.
Yeah, I feel like they have a couple decent options back there, and they're kind of different. Like Marcus Hooker does not seem like someone who, with a good year, is a first round draft pick next year, and Josh Proctor probably is. But I could see either of them getting the job done this year. You know, I think that, and that's good. That's having options back there is good because they may not be able to. I know they want to play the one high. And I mean, Ryan Day really wants to play that one high defense. It's possible that it just doesn't work out this year if Proctor is just not able to be that Jordan Fuller kind of backstop, that they may have to go to, maybe more of a too high look. And that's, that won't be the end of the world. They have the guys to play that if they have to. But, yeah, I mean, I think that I would say I'm confident enough in the safeties between the two of them and with some of the other guys that are in that room. I mean, Court Williams coming in as a true freshman. You don't want to play a freshman, but he's certainly a decent option. Ronnie Hickman. I mean, I liked him enough. I made him the third pick in this. Just he's someone who coaches talk up about his awareness and his, how good he is in the film room.
Right, smart.
We have not seen it on the field yet. Yeah, he's a smart kid. He understands it all. He's, having watched some high school highlights, he's got the physical tools to be able to do it. We haven't seen him. He missed all last year with a leg injury, so we haven't seen him yet on the field, except for that first practice. So, we'll see how well it translates. And then Bryson Shaw as well. We have not seen, he was on kickoff duty basically exclusively last year. And so we don't really know what they have there with him, but there are enough pieces there that I'm reasonably confident that they'll end up with a couple guys who can play at the level that they need them to play.
We haven't talked about the linebackers yet, and I made Taraji Mitchell the first pick among the linebackers. I'm going to put him at the will. Then I've got Kayvon Pope and Craig Young at the Sam. Kayvon Pope, he can play the will. Got Tommy Eichenberg. I'm going to put him in the middle, and I'm going to let him be. He's going to be my big cat, and I'm going to say, you see those quarterbacks, that Justin Fields and whoever that Stroud kid is. I want you to picture on the back of their jerseys it says Corby Jones. And I'm going to get them visors so that they can put them in their helmets. I don't care if the refs are going to flag me. We are like the U, except good. And so we don't really care what the refs think. We're going to do our own thing. And so I'm going to say, go get Corby Jones, take him down. Go get the second Corby Jones, take him down. And if a third Corby Jones wants to get in, go get you some. And then Tough Borland is also on my team.
I like the idea of telling these guys to go get Corby Jones, who last played football probably at least a year or two before any of them were born. And
what's it, Corby?
Yeah.
What?
Go get Corby Jones. Who? What? And then the play's already further down the field past them. So yeah, that's a good game plan. Do that. I've got Dallas Gant, Baron Browning, Pete Werner, and Justin Hilliard, and I'm assuming you're not going to see a lot of Pete Werner, but Dallas Gant, and throw Dallas Gant in the middle, and Baron Browning was at the Will and the Sam or when we saw him earlier in the spring, so you've got a little flexibility there. Justin Hilliard can run probably either of those spots as well. Pete Werner can run at either of those spots as well. So I feel like every time we talk about the linebackers, it's kind of like, yeah, we've seen them working there, but I don't know how permanent that really is.
All four of your guys have played at least two positions, and most of them have played all three
spots. Yeah.
But what you have also done, Tom, is you've only got four, and if you're not going to play one guy very much, then you got to be like the other three. Hey, man, you got to play. Like Baron Browning, I don't care if you're a senior. What are we supposed to do? Run two linebackers? No. Remember, this is a 4-linebacker program sometimes. We run a 4-4. We're not going to go out here and run a 3-2. Let me do the math. 3-2-6? Come on, get out of here.
Yeah, I think we could have thrown some walk-ons on this roster. Looking back,
a little bit,
and maybe flesh things out a little bit more.
Big Sneezy,
yeah, it's okay. We'll make it work. And if Pete Werner has to play a half, that's okay. He's done it before. I'm confident in him.
Anything else? Anything else you want to mention about this preview that as we're getting ready to kick off? And of course, the kickoffs. Just to let you guys know, it's just going to be a quarterback throwing the ball downfield.
Mm-hmm. That's fine. That'll work. No, we've already name-checked Jaja Riley, so the show has actually officially ended about 10 minutes ago, so I think we're good.
All right. Shout out to Jerry Westbrooks if you're out there. Any other running backs you want to who have worn 27?
Jerry Westbrooks, the greatest number 27 running back in Ohio State history.
I did think Jaja Riley and Jerry Westbrooks are both going to be pretty good because Jaja Riley came from California, so why wouldn't you be good?
Yeah, San Diego native.
Like Mike Wiley was good.
It's true.
But so that'll do it. I think that'll do it. We gotta get ready for the game. I feel pretty good about my Scarlet squad. Let's do some score predictions, Tom. I am feeling a Scarlet victory with my quarterbacks Gunnar Hoke and Jack Miller probably combining to go about 26 for 31, passing for about 385 yards. I will say Scarlet 35, Gray 21.
Wow. If you want to give me my team plus 13.5, I'll take it. That's if you'd like to offer that action up, I will take it. Yeah, I feel like I'm probably getting out to a lead here. And I don't know that the second half will be great, but the second half of these games is never great. Like this feels like this could be like a 21-7 game in the second quarter, 24-7 Gray in the second quarter, and end up like 31-20, something like that. That seems about right. Yeah, Justin Fields. It's really just a matter of how long I want to keep Justin Fields in there, and
what if
how long Thayer Munford stays in there. The longer, if those guys play a full half, it might be 28-7 at the half or something like that. If they somehow played the whole game, I'd probably take a 45-20 kind of score, but they're not going to play the whole game. So I'll say 31-20. That sounds about right.
The way I see it happening is Gray will be leading 21-7, as you said, like going into the fourth. But then Jack Miller will lead the team to 3 touchdowns to make it 28-21 Scarlet. And then you, being like petty, will throw Justin Fields back on the field. And because for some reason you think you have to win this thing, it's like, well, Tom, it's about the kids. All right, let's just let the kids have fun. But you're going to want to win so badly that you'll throw Justin Fields back out there, and that's where, say, Ryan Watts or Marcus Hooker will pick six it, and that's what makes it 35-21. And at that point, we'll just say, you know what, it was a nice effort, but we could probably just let these last minute and 50 run off the clock and let's just go home.
My game plan is to get out to a 21-7 lead and then have it rain, so they just call off the game early. I think maybe that's my best game plan here.
People understand, like, can we just go home? It's a spring game. Under normal circumstances. Now people probably be like, hey, let's can we stay here a little bit longer? And that's why maybe a furious fourth quarter comeback would be great for people, and it would give them the impetus to move on, to continue on, to fight and fight and fight. But you would try to take that away from them by putting Justin Fields back on the field. You're a monster.
Yeah, I mean, you're not the first person to say that.
It's the third time I've heard that today. All right, let's go ahead and wrap it up. We got hot dogs to go get over in the press box. So thank you all for listening. We will talk to you later on next week-ish, I'm sure. So have a good one. Hopefully this was a distraction for you, and we all continue on staying inside, staying home, staying productive, staying sane, and staying healthy. Have a good one.
We could steal a car and leave tonight. Midnight, porch light. I had to see you 'cause I know things just haven't been right. This feeling's getting stronger. I can't take it any longer. Say you will, now say you will. Oh yeah. Say you will, now say you will. If you tell me that tomorrow's alright, we can steal a car and leave tonight. Well, I came in for a goodbye kiss, but I could never have imagined this. Say you will, now say you will. Oh yeah. Say you will, now say you will. Say you will, now say you will. If you tell me that tomorrow